We have an all-star lineup for our next presentation. Doug Clements, who hosted STEMIEFest on Tuesday, and Julie Sarama, who hosted on Wednesday. Their seminar is titled Early Math, Surprisingly Important. A Q&A session will follow.
Dr. Doug Clements and Dr. Julie Sarama from the Morisco Institute at the University of Denver and the STEMI Center will now present Early Math, Surprisingly Important.
Hi, I'm Julie Sarama.
And I'm Doug Clements.
And we're going to talk to you today about early math and some things that you might find surprising.
For example, math is surprisingly predictive of later school success. Really early math. I mean from birth right through preschool. The large-scale research that looked at all early reading skill, early math skill, attention, internalizing problems, externalizing problems, and all the rest, found mathematics was the most predictive of later school success. All of them are important, but math is particularly important.
And we know that children have surprising math potential. All children. They tend to be underestimated. And we know that they can learn really broad, complex math at a really young age. Let's watch this video of this child who is 4 at the time of this video was taken. I think she would be considered gifted, so maybe not typical, but yet we know from lots of videos that parents send us from all over the world that more typical than you'd think.
5.
Good. How do you know?
I know that's from 4 to 8. So when I think of 9, I know that there's 1 around, so if I take away 4, it's like take away 4 from 8. So there's 1 more still figured out, I'll put the end on and it's 5.
And I think what's cool about that is not that she can figure out the answer, because kids can memorize answers, and really bright kids, twice exceptional kids can do that, just memory. But what we see with that little girl is that she's able to visualize the problem, see objects, and really figure it out in real time. We're seeing her little thought process. And what we've learned with our studies with lots of children and lots of situations is that if we give children time to really think about it and figure it out, almost all children are able to figure out complex math problems and love explaining it to you.
And so surprise number 1, it's predictive. Surprise number 2, kids are amazingly competent if given the chance to learn. Surprise number 3, let me show you a study first, and then I'll tell you about the surprise. They looked at entering kindergartners. They had just finished preschool, entering kindergartners, and they asked them a lot of tasks. And so one of the tasks was, can you count out or produce a set of 2, 5, 7? Julie, can you give me 9 marbles? That kind of thing. And the kids did amazingly well. Look at the high percentage of these are end of preschool, right? Beginning kindergarten kids could do that. But there was a surprising part of this study. That is, they asked 4 groups of teachers, caregivers, professional development people that work with those teachers,
right,
to predict what kids could do.
Yeah, these are children in daycare settings mostly. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And their predictions, as the numbers go up, their predictions go way down. Look at the last one. Some of them said 30% or 10%. But actually 80% could do it.
Right.
And in subtraction, it's even more. Here's what kids could do. It's lower, of course. There's subtraction problems. But look at where the teachers thought. Way down there. So the surprise is, it's a surprise to too many of us as educators how well kids can do if given the opportunity to learn.
And that's really what we're talking about today, mostly. Early in math, children need an opportunity. We do know a lot. We know from years and years of studies that one of the key ways to understand how children learn and to help caregivers do better math, teach math better with children, is by using learning trajectories.
So learning trajectories, we know about math and it's helped build standards, and we know about how kids develop, and that's helped us build assessments. And we know a little bit about teaching, and that's helped us build curriculum and teaching practices, right? Good teaching practices. But learning trajectories weaves those three areas of research and knowledge and the wisdom of expert practice from caregivers and daycare people and parents together, so that all these areas, what is the math, what are the levels of thinking, and what are the teaching practices?
That's really complex, Doug, and I think that we could break it down a little better for people. So what we know about learning trajectories, if you want to think about it this way, is there's a goal. And if you took this into be any other area, say physical development, it's pretty easy to think about a goal. So most people think about children they'd want their children to be able to sit up without assistance. And we know that when babies are born, they don't have the muscle tone to hold up their head. And eventually, though, they can build their core muscles and they can sit up unaided. So we know that there's a developmental progression that goes along just to getting to the point where they're able to sit up unaided. And we wouldn't call it instructional activities, but really there are things that we do as parents, as caregivers, that help children get to that point where they're sitting up unaided, where we prop them up for bits of time, where we hold them differently, where we give them opportunities on their back and on their belly to play, to build up those muscles so that they are ready to meet that developmental milestone, which is our goal. That's sort of normal. It's the way we try to help all children. The same thing can be said with math. If we want all kids to be able to count 20 objects eventually, how do we start? We teach them number words, but that's not enough. We teach them to point to objects, but that's not enough. We teach them to say the number when we point to objects. That's not there yet. Okay, we have to ask them how many so that they know that the last word tells how many. And we even have to say, can you hand me some? All these things are little steps along the way. And learning trajectories help parents, caregivers, and teachers watch their children, see how cool they are and how amazing they are and everything that they can do, and build on that so they do meet their goals.
Yeah, very good. So that you're saying those kind of steps or phases are these what we call a developmental progression, and even though it's called in our writings instructional activities, it includes everything, right?
Right.
It's caregiving. It's setting up the good environment.
Right.
It's offering help when needed, and then sometimes it's actually counting with the kid or something like that in an active way, because when we know how to differentiate instruction, so important, especially for children with disabilities, we have to ask these three questions. Where are you trying to go? Where are you now? And how can you get there? Well, learning trajectories provide that information. Where are you trying to go is the learning trajectory's goal. Where are you now is the level of thinking along the mathematical learning trajectory. And what's the next level we can develop? And how can you get there? Are all these teaching practices.
Right. So when we hear from parents or caregivers, or they email us and they say, my child can do this. Mm-hmm. I want them to be able to do that. What do I do to help them to be able to do that? That's what we're really talking about with the instructional activities. And like you said, it could be something as simple as, hey, the next time you're setting out your snack, give the child 3 mm-hmm. and say, look, you have 3 goldfish on your plate. Just naming the number of goldfish is really going to build up that vocabulary.
Absolutely.
And those are the kind of conversations that we have with people all the time. Finally, we do know a lot about how to work with teachers and caregivers, and we have fancy research to show that the approach of learning trajectories works. We don't have to get into this, but everybody can see the learning trajectories bar is the biggest bar. And we've done these studies with thousands of teachers, and in general, the learning trajectories and working with a wide variety of caregivers, it helped all kids in all situations.
And it lasts for teachers too, and it also kids learn literacy
Right.
as well, and language skills.
Because one thing we know, that when we want to ask children, how do you know and how are you solving that, we're constantly talking and building their vocabulary. And so that high language, they call high language math approach, is really helpful for kids developing language at all. So if you focus on math, you're not losing language. And in our study, when we went back and assessed children's language, children who had worked with this type of math intervention did much better. The math intervention we call building blocks is really just a learning trajectories approach.
Exactly. And this is sustained for teachers too, right, Julie?
People who work with us like you doing it. Once you figure out that your job is to really look at how children learn and build on that, it's exciting. And so people keep doing it way after we step away.
So here's in the fall, here's in the spring, and we were surprised when we went back as much as 6 years later that they got better.
Right.
Because they learned about children's thinking.
Right. Finally, before we go, we should tell you that we do have a website called Learning and Teaching with Learning Trajectories, in which all these learning trajectories are laid out for all kinds of topics. There's videos that show and explain what those developmental levels are, and there are instructional activities that help teachers get children to the next level. And there's more to come, right, Doug?
There's more to come, too. When you go into it, you can see the levels of thinking. You can pick different ages. Then you can see videos at each level of thinking. And you can also see videos of teachers, caregivers, and parents working with their kids,
right,
or just talking to their kids in everyday situations, right, and how that develops.
Again, some of our favorite videos are people just sending us videos they took on their cell phone, saying, "Look what Chloe did yesterday." Mm-hmm. Our niece Brianna sends videos of her children counting backwards and jumping off a stool, and they're just fantastic videos. But anybody at any time sends us videos, we look at it, we put it in a level of thinking, and it goes on the website so that we can explain how kids learn math to more and more people. And then you want to explain what is coming?
Yeah, so in LT squared, why is it important for all children, especially children with disabilities? It is developmental.
Right.
You can always go down to a level of thinking that kid has mastered, and that kid has strengths, and up if kids are twice exceptional, like you said. Very many times people think, oh, we won't bother them with math, but that's what they're particularly good at. And it's adaptable, right, Julie?
Right. And so the coming soon will be a place where we can click on and do different kinds of adaptations, because you know what the math activities aren't? They're not worksheets. They're not having children take a crayon and draw from a numeral 4 to a picture of 4 apples. This is really about hands-on activities, building, singing, all kinds of those things that can you do in an everyday environment. We believe
you should find the mathematics in kids' everyday play and pull the mathematics out of it, so kids have a chance to sing it or say it or whatever their strengths are for communicating about what they're thinking.
Exactly. We're going to play to children's strengths, because all we ever want to do is see what children can do. As we said, children are remarkable, and we have to take advantage of that and build their math better. So, build their math better. That's a great phrase.
And we hope to build math better with you in the future.